Widow finds wooden building in the forest. But what she finds on the 7th floor. Sarah Mitchell was walking through the dense forest with her 3 young children when she tripped over a protruding root and fell to her knees on the damp ground. Her hands trembled as she braced herself on the cold earth, and when she lifted her face, she was met with a sight that took her breath away. There, in the middle of the thick vegetation, stood an impossible 7-story wooden tower with a structure that seemed to defy all laws of engineering. It was exactly like the drawings she had found among the belongings of Marcus, her late husband. Daniel, only 8 years old, was the first to approach the enigmatic construction. "Mommy, what is this strange building, Auntie?" asked the boy, touching the dark wood of the outer wall. Sarah got up slowly, wiping the dirt from her hands on the black dress she still wore even after 2 years. Emma Grace, 6 years old, held tightly to her mother's skirt, while Ryan, the youngest at just 4, pointed to the top of the tower with wide eyes. "I don't know, sweetie. I've never seen anything like this around here." She knew that area of the forest like the back of her hand. For years, she had walked these trails with Marcus on weekends while he studied the terrain's topography for his civil engineering projects. That tower simply shouldn't exist there. A rusty metal plaque was nailed next to the main door, with letters almost faded by rain and time. Sarah approached to try to read it, brushing away some leaves that covered part of the text. "Experimental Architectural Project. Restricted access," she murmured, feeling a chill in her stomach. Marcus always talked about experimental projects he developed at the office, innovative constructions that could revolutionize American engineering. He said that one day he would show her the most important drawings, but life had other plans. The car accident that took her husband's life happened on a September morning, when he left early for a business meeting in Austin. Sarah still remembered every detail of that terrible day, from the hospitalization phone call to the moment the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. "Mommy, can I go in?" Daniel asked, already with his hand on the knob of the carved wooden door. "No, honey. The sign says it's forbidden." But there was something magnetic about that construction, a force pulling her to investigate. Marcus's drawings came back to her mind like a gust of cold wind. They were sketches of a multi-story wooden tower, each with a specific function. She had found those papers in a folder hidden at the back of the closet, weeks after the funeral. Emma Grace tugged on the hem of her mother's dress. "Mommy, I'm scared. Can I stay right here next to you?" Sarah hugged her daughter and looked at the tower again. The wind swayed the surrounding trees, creating dancing shadows on the wooden walls. There were windows on every floor, some with curtains closed, others open, showing only darkness. "Okay, let's just take a quick look," she finally said, giving in to the curiosity that consumed her. The door wasn't locked. She turned the knob carefully and pushed the heavy wooden door, which opened with a prolonged creak. Inside, a familiar smell filled her nostrils. It was the scent of varnished wood mixed with something she couldn't identify. The first floor of the tower was a spacious room with rustic furniture carefully arranged. There was a coffee table made from a polished log, solid wood chairs and shelves on the walls loaded with books. Everything was clean and organized, as if someone took care of that place regularly. Daniel ran to a shelf and picked up one of the books. "Mommy, look. This book is about building houses." Sarah approached and saw it was a civil engineering manual, exactly the kind Marcus used to study. On the cover, there was a handwritten note in familiar script. "For Sarah, with all my love. One day you'll understand all my dreams. Marcus." Her legs weakened. That was definitely her husband's handwriting, but the book looked new, without the signs of wear that characterized his personal library at home. Ryan moved away from the group and started climbing a wooden staircase leading to the 2nd floor. "Ryan, come back here right now," shouted Sarah, running after her son. But when she reached the 2nd floor, she stopped abruptly. There was a complete carpentry workshop, with tools organized on workbenches, and hanging on the main wall, a plaque with the name Marcus Mitchell, engineer and carpenter. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Sarah approached the main workbench and picked up a hammer. On the wooden handle, the initials MM were hand-carved, exactly as Marcus did on all his personal tools. But this was impossible. All of Marcus's tools were stored in their home garage, covered with a tarp for 2 years. "Mommy, that hammer is just like the one Daddy used," said Daniel, recognizing the tool. "Yes, son, it's very similar." But Sarah knew it wasn't just similar. It was identical. Even a small mark on the side of the handle, caused by an accident when Marcus was still an engineering student, was present on that tool. Emma Grace found a notebook on the workbench and started flipping through it. "Mommy, there are drawings here." Sarah took the notebook and felt her heart race. They were architectural plans in Marcus's unmistakable handwriting, with his characteristic signature in the bottom right corner of each page. But the dates on the sheets indicated the drawings had been made in recent months. "This can't be happening," she whispered to herself. Marcus had died in September 2021. The drawings in that notebook were dated January, March, and June of 2023. 2 pages still smelled of fresh graphite, as if they had been made recently. Her knees trembled, and she leaned on the workbench to keep from falling. Daniel and Emma Grace watched her with concern, while Ryan continued exploring the environment with the natural curiosity of a 4-year-old. "Mummy, are you okay?" asked Daniel, holding her hand. "Yes, my love. I just got a little tired from the walk." But Sarah was not okay. Her mind tried to process information that simply made no sense. How was it possible that Marcus's tools and drawings were in that place, especially with dates after the accident? A terrible possibility began to take shape in her thoughts. What if Marcus hadn't died in the accident? What if, for some incomprehensible reason, he was alive and living hidden in that tower? The idea was absurd. She had seen the body at the hospital. She had organized the funeral. She had cried over the grave for months. But the evidence around her suggested a completely different reality. "Let's go up to see the other floors," she said, trying to keep her voice steady so as not to scare the children. The 3rd floor of the tower revealed an even greater surprise. It was a comfortable living room with leather sofas, an old television, and scattered on the walls, photographs of the Mitchell family. Sarah immediately recognized several photos: her wedding to Marcus, Daniel's birth, Emma Grace's first steps, Ryan's baptism. But among these familiar images, there were photographs she had never seen before. Photos of the children in recent situations: Daniel playing soccer at school, Emma Grace at the neighborhood playground, Ryan playing in the backyard at home. All the images had been taken in recent months, always from a distance, as if someone were watching them without being noticed. "Mommy, how did these pictures of us get here?" asked Emma Grace, pointing to an image of herself building sandcastles at the beach during the last summer vacation. Sarah didn't know what to answer. She took the photograph from her daughter's hands and examined it carefully. It was a sharp, professional image, taken with a good camera. In the bottom corner there was a printed date, January 15th, 2023. She remembered that day at the beach perfectly. She had taken the children to Myrtle Beach, trying to create happy memories to compensate for their father's absence. "Someone must have taken these photos and put them here," she replied, trying to sound convincing. But who would do that, and why? Sarah had no enemies. She lived a simple and reserved life, working as a teacher at a public school and taking care of her 3 children alone. The only person who would have an interest in watching her family was... No. She pushed the thought away. Marcus was dead. She was absolutely certain of that. Daniel discovered a wooden chest in the corner of the room and opened it curiously. Inside there were men's clothes carefully folded, blue dress shirts, Marcus's favorite color, brown khaki pants in the size he wore, and, at the bottom of the chest, a leather wallet with documents. Sarah picked up the wallet with trembling hands and opened it. There was Marcus's ID card, with the same photo she knew, but with a recent issue date. The social security number was the same, the full name was identical, but the document had been renewed just 3 months ago. "How is this possible?" she murmured, feeling dizzy. Along with the ID there were other cards, a bank card, a driver's license, a health insurance card. All the documents were up to date and in perfect condition. Emma Grace pulled a shirt from the chest and smelled it. "Mommy, this shirt smells just like Daddy." Sarah took the shirt from her daughter's hands and brought it close to her face. It was true. The fabric had the distinctive scent that Marcus always wore, a woody fragrance she had given him as a gift on the last Father's Day they spent together. Ryan, who was playing near the television, found a remote control and pressed it. The TV turned on, showing a news channel. The volume was low, but Sarah could hear the anchor talking about current events. The device worked perfectly, as if it were used regularly. Her legs couldn't hold her anymore, and she sat on the sofa, trying to organize her thoughts. Each floor of that tower revealed more evidence that Marcus might be alive, but how to explain 2 years of mourning, of tears, of sleepless nights trying to understand how life would continue without him? "Mommy, why are you crying?" asked Daniel, approaching and wiping a tear that was running down her face. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Mommy is just a little confused." She looked around the room once more. Besides the photographs and clothes, there were other details that indicated recent occupation: architecture magazines with current dates, a cup with coffee residue on the side table, men's slippers beside the sofa. Someone definitely lived in that tower, and all the evidence pointed to an impossible person. "Let's see the 4th floor," she finally said, needing to discover the truth. The stairs leading to the next floor creaked under their feet. Sarah climbed slowly, holding Ryan in her arms while Daniel and Emma Grace walked beside her. With each step, her heart beat faster. The 4th floor was a complete bedroom. There was a double bed made with clean sheets, a solid wood wardrobe, a dresser with a mirror, and on the bedside table, a photo frame with a picture from Sarah and Marcus's wedding. Sarah approached the bed and touched the pillows. They were indented, as if someone had slept there recently. The blanket had the same scent she had noticed on the shirt downstairs. She opened the dresser drawers and found men's underwear, all in the size Marcus wore. In the bottom drawer, she discovered a small red velvet box. Inside the box was a wedding band identical to the one Marcus wore, with the same inner engraving: "Sarah and Marcus, forever, 03/15/2010. Her hands trembled as she held the ring. She clearly remembered removing the ring from Marcus's finger at the hospital, right after confirming there were no more vital signs. That ring was stored in a special box at home, along with other precious belongings of her husband. How could there be 2 identical rings with the same personalized engraving? Daniel opened the wardrobe and shouted in surprise, "Mom, there are Dad's clothes in here!" Inside the wardrobe, shirts, pants, suits, and shoes were organized exactly the way Marcus used to do it. He always folded shirts in a specific way and arranged the shoes by color. All those details were present in that wardrobe. Emma Grace found a toothbrush in the bathroom attached to the room, along with men's hygiene products that Marcus used to use. The toothpaste was open and the brush was still damp. "Someone brushed their teeth here this morning," said Emma Grace, showing the brush to her mother. Sarah took the brush and examined it. It was true. The bristles were damp and there were fresh traces of toothpaste. Whoever lived in that tower had used the bathroom just a few hours ago. Her legs trembled again, and she leaned against the wall to keep from falling. The children watched her with growing concern, sensing something was very wrong with the situation. "Mom, let's get out of here." "This place is scaring me," said Emma Grace, clutching her mother's skirt. Sarah was also afraid, but it was a different kind of fear. It wasn't fear of the unknown, but fear of discovering a truth that could completely change her life and the lives of her children. "Let's just check one more floor, okay?" she said, trying to calm the children. The 5th floor was a fully equipped kitchen. There was a refrigerator, stove, microwave, and all the appliances needed for independent living. Sarah opened the refrigerator and found fresh food: milk, fruit, vegetables, meat, all with current expiration dates. In the sink there was a dirty cup with remnants of still warm coffee. The coffee was made in an electric coffee maker that was still on, keeping the liquid warm. "Someone had coffee here recently," she murmured, touching the side of the warm cup. On the kitchen table there was a calendar open to the current month. Several dates were marked with handwritten notes in Marcus's handwriting. Doctor's appointment, 3 p.m., buy groceries, Daniel's birthday, 0723. Sarah remembered that Daniel's birthday was next week. How would that person, whoever it was, know the exact date of her son's birthday? On the kitchen wall there was a shopping list stuck with a magnet. The handwriting was unmistakable. Milk, bread, fruit, gift for Daniel, chocolate cake. Marcus always wrote shopping lists the same way, with the same right-slanted handwriting. Ryan found a jar of cookies on the counter and opened it. They were homemade chocolate cookies, exactly like the ones Marcus used to make on weekends when he was alive. The recipe was a family secret he had learned from his grandmother. "Mom, these cookies are just like the ones Dad used to make," said Ryan, biting into one of the sweets. Sarah picked up a cookie and tasted it. The flavor was identical. The texture, the seasoning, the exact amount of chocolate. It was impossible for someone to reproduce that recipe so precisely without knowing all the preparation secrets. Her tears began to fall more intensely. Every detail in that tower pointed to a truth her mind refused to accept. Marcus could be alive, all the pain of the last 2 years, all the tears, all the lonely nights trying to explain to the children why Daddy wasn't coming home anymore. "Let's see the 6th floor," she said with a choked voice. The children noticed she was crying and grew more worried. Daniel held her hand tightly, offering the support he could give with his 8 years of age. The 6th floor was an office. There was a work desk with a leather chair, shelves full of technical engineering books, a desktop computer, and several folders organized with architectural projects. Sarah approached the desk and saw a stack of letters addressed to her. They all had her correct handwriting and address, but they hadn't been mailed. They were letters someone had written but decided not to send. She took the letter from the top of the stack and opened it with trembling hands. The contents left her breathless. "My dearest Sarah, I know you think I'm gone forever, but the truth is much more complicated than you can imagine. I had to make a desperate decision to protect you and the children, even if it meant breaking your heart. I know you are raising our children alone and it kills me inside. I watch you from afar whenever I can. Daniel is growing and becoming a brave boy like I always knew he would be. Emma Grace remains sweet and caring, always looking after her younger brother. And Ryan, our little Ryan is getting smarter and more curious every day. You can't imagine how painful it is to be near and not be able to hug you all. How many times I wanted to knock on the door and explain everything. But I know that would put you in danger. Soon, when everything is settled, I will come home. I promise I will explain every detail of this impossible situation. Please don't hate me for causing all this pain. I love you more than my own life. Your eternal husband, Marcus P.S. Keep the tools I left in the garage safe. One day, I'll need them again." Sarah read the letter 3 times before the words made sense. Marcus was alive. He had faked his own death for some reason she still didn't understand, but he was alive and watching her from afar during all these months of mourning. Anger began to mix with relief. How could he do that to her? How could he let her suffer, let the children cry every night asking for their father? She opened more letters from the stack. They all had similar content, expressing longing, asking for forgiveness, and promising future explanations. One of the letters, dated the previous month, mentioned dangerous debts Marcus had incurred and people who threatened the family's safety. "Sarah, you need to understand that I was involved in something very dangerous. Unscrupulous people discovered my architectural projects and tried to force me to participate in illegal schemes. When I refused, they threatened to hurt you and the children. The only way to protect you was to disappear completely. With the help of a doctor friend, I staged my own departure at the hospital. I know it was cruel, but it was the only way to ensure you stayed safe." Daniel approached his mother and saw she was reading letters. "Mom, who are these letters from?" They're letters from someone very special to us." Sarah didn't know how to explain the situation to the children, how to tell them their father was alive after 2 years of believing he had died. How could she explain that everything had been a deception, even if with good intentions? Emma Grace found more documents on the table. They were architectural blueprints of a house, with detailed notes about renovations and improvements. Sarah recognized them immediately. They were blueprints of the house where they lived, with plans for an expansion that Marcus had promised to do before the accident. He was planning to renovate our house, she said to herself, analyzing the technical drawings. In the plans, Marcus had drawn a larger bedroom for Daniel, a walk-in closet for the master bedroom, and a playground in the backyard for Ryan. They were all the improvements they had discussed during the last year of their marriage. The computer on the table was on. Sarah moved the mouse and the screen lit up, showing the desktop. There were organized folders with familiar names: Project Sarah's House, Family Photos, Unsent Letters, Future Plans. She clicked on the Photos folder and found hundreds of images of the family, all taken secretly over the last 2 years. Photos of the children at school, at the playground, playing in the backyard. Photos of herself shopping, leaving work, taking the children to the doctor. Marcus had been observing and documenting their lives throughout the entire period of mourning. He knew about every important event, every milestone in the children's lives, every difficulty Sarah had faced as a single mother. One folder particularly caught her attention: Family Security. Inside it, there were documents about investigations Marcus was conducting, photographs of unknown men, and reports about suspicious activities around their house. Sarah realized that Marcus hadn't simply run from responsibility. He had continued protecting the family from afar, monitoring potential threats and documenting evidence against the people who had threatened them. In a subfolder, there were copies of fraudulent contracts Marcus had refused to sign, emails with explicit threats against the family, and photographs of armed men who had been seen lurking around their house in the first months after her husband's supposed death. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The evidence showed that Marcus had made a desperate decision to protect the people he loved. It wasn't cowardice or abandonment, but an extreme sacrifice that cost 2 years of separation from his family. Sarah felt torn between anger at the lie and recognition of the love that motivated that impossible decision. Marcus had given up his own life to ensure that she and the children could live in peace. Ryan, who was playing near the bookshelf, accidentally knocked over some books. When Sarah bent down to help him pick up the volumes, she found a leather-bound planner that had fallen among the books. The planner was open to a specific page and contained daily notes from the last few months. The entries revealed Marcus's lonely routine in the tower, mealtimes, morning exercises, work on architectural projects, and, every day, a time reserved for observing the family. 7:30 a.m., breakfast 8:00 a.m., exercises on the 7th floor, 9:00 a.m., work on projects 12:00 p.m., lunch 2:00 p.m., observe Sarah taking the children to school, 3:30 p.m., continue investigation on Myrtle Beach and Thompson, 5:00 p.m., dinner, 7:00 p.m., check security around the house, 8:30 p.m., write letter to Sarah, 9:30 p.m., reading before bed. The routine showed a disciplined but profoundly lonely man. Each day was structured around small moments of indirect connection with the family he had left behind. In some entries of the agenda, Marcus had written personal reflections about the difficulty of his situation. Sarah seems thinner. The financial worries must be weighing on her. How I wish I could help, but any direct contact would still put everyone at risk. Daniel had a birthday today, 8 years old. He got a new bicycle and was very happy. I cried watching him play in the backyard. My son is growing up without me. Emma Grace cried a lot tonight. I heard when I passed near the house during the security patrol. She still misses me. This is killing me inside. Sarah realized that Marcus had suffered as much as she had during the 2 years of separation. Perhaps even more, because he knew the truth and carried the weight of the decision to maintain the charade. The children were getting impatient. Ryan was whining that he wanted to go home. Emma Grace complained of hunger, and Daniel kept asking when they would leave that strange place. "Let's just see one more floor, the last one, and then we'll go home," said Sarah, trying to calm the children. But she knew she couldn't simply leave, not after discovering that Marcus was alive. She needed answers. She needed to fully understand the situation before making any decision about how to proceed. The stairs to the 7th floor were steeper than the previous ones. Sarah climbed slowly, carrying Ryan in her arms, while Daniel and Emma Grace held onto the polished wooden railing. When she reached the top floor, Sarah stopped in front of a closed door. Unlike the other floors, this door was locked. There was a small plaque nailed to the wood. Private Office, Marcus Mitchell. She touched the doorknob and found it wasn't locked, just firmly shut. She pushed the door slowly, and it opened with a prolonged creak. The 7th floor was smaller than the others, but incredibly organized. It was a combination of an office and a living room, with a work desk, some comfortable armchairs, shelves full of books, and in the center of the room, a wooden chair turned with its back to the door. Sarah saw that someone was sitting in the chair. It was a male silhouette wearing a blue shirt she recognized perfectly. The man had slightly graying brown hair and was leaning with his elbows on his knees, as if in deep thought. Her legs trembled, and she almost dropped Ryan. Her heart began to beat so hard she was sure everyone on the floor could hear it. "Marcus?" she whispered, almost voiceless. The man in the chair turned slowly. It was Marcus, thinner, with stubble, tired eyes, and wrinkles that didn't exist 2 years ago. But it was definitely Marcus Mitchell, her husband, the father of her children, the man she had mourned for 24 months. "Hi, Sarah," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I knew one day you'd find this place." Daniel was the first to react. He shouted, "Daddy!" and ran toward his father, who rose from the chair with tears in his eyes. Marcus picked up his son and hugged him tightly, kissing his face repeatedly. Emma Grace stood frozen for a few seconds, processing the impossible sight, before also running into her father's arms. Ryan, not fully understanding what was happening, but seeing his siblings happy, stretched his little arms toward Marcus. Sarah watched the scene, unable to move. It was real. Marcus was alive, hugging the children, crying with joy at the reunion. 2 years of mourning, 2 years of longing, 2 years of tears had turned out to be a complicated lie. "How could you do this to us?" were the first words she managed to utter, her voice laden with pain and anger. Marcus looked at her over the children's heads. Her eyes were red from tears, but there was also a deep sadness she couldn't fully decipher. "Sarah, I can explain everything. I know it was terrible for you, but I had no choice. There were dangerous people who were going to hurt you all if I didn't disappear." "What people? What is this story?" Sarah moved closer, still holding Ryan. "I was involved in a project to build a shopping center. It was a big job, one that was going to secure our financial future. But I discovered the investors were using money from questionable sources, laundering money through the construction." Marcus sat back down in the chair, still holding Daniel and Emma Grace, and began to tell the full story. "When I tried to distance myself from the project, they threatened me. They said if I told anyone about the scheme, they would hurt you and the children. They showed me photos of you all at school, at the supermarket, at home. They knew the family's every move." Sarah sank into a nearby armchair, needing to process that information. Marcus continued, "I tried to go to other authorities, but I found out some police officers were also involved in the scheme. I had no one to turn to without putting you all at even greater risk." "So you decided to pretend you had died?" Sarah's voice was heavy with disbelief. "It was the only solution I could find. A doctor friend helped me stage the accident and the supposed death at the hospital. Officially, Marcus Mitchell died that day, but in reality I came to hide here in the forest while I investigated evidence against those people." The children listened to the conversation without fully understanding, but sensing it was a very serious situation. Daniel, who was the oldest, began to ask questions. "Daddy, why couldn't you tell us you were alive?" Marcus stroked his son's hair. "Because if you knew, you could be in danger. Those bad men could have found out I was alive and hurt you, Emma Grace, Ryan, and your mother." Emma Grace, always perceptive, asked, "But isn't it dangerous anymore?" Marcus looked at Sarah before answering. "I'm still investigating. I'm gathering evidence to turn these people over to the authorities. When I can prove all the crimes they committed, then we can be together again, safely." Sarah felt an intense anger growing inside her. "Marcus, do you have any idea what we went through these past 2 years? Do you know how many nights the children cried asking for their father? Do you know how hard it was to raise 3 children alone, to work, to pay all the bills, to explain to them why Daddy wasn't coming back? Tears began to stream down her face. I almost lost the house because I couldn't pay the mortgage alone. I had to sell your car, your tools, everything of value to get money. The children asked every day when you were coming back, and I had to repeat that you had gone to heaven and couldn't come back anymore. Marcus stood up and tried to approach her, but Sarah recoiled. Don't touch me right now. I need to understand everything before anything. She looked around the office, seeing more evidence of the life Marcus had built in that tower. There were maps of the region on the wall, photographs of the people he was investigating, documents organized in folders, and an amateur radio communication set he used to monitor conversations. How long have you been here? Since 3 weeks after the day at the hospital. I spent the first few weeks in a safe house my doctor friend arranged. Then I built this tower as a more permanent operations base. Sarah processed the information. Marcus had begun building that tower while she was still in deep shock from the loss, organizing the funeral, and trying to explain to the young children why Daddy wasn't coming home anymore. Did you build it all by yourself? With the help of a few trusted friends, people who knew about the situation and agreed to help me. But I designed each floor myself, thinking of a place where I could live temporarily while I resolved the situation. Emma Grace, who was listening attentively, asked, Daddy, were you here alone all this time? Yes, my daughter, very alone. I stayed here and only went out to investigate those bad men or to see you from afar. Daniel remembered something. Mommy, remember that time you said you felt like someone was watching us at the playground? Sarah remembered. It had been about 6 months ago. She was at the playground with the children when she had the strange feeling of being watched. She looked around but saw no one suspicious. Was that you? She asked Marcus. He nodded, embarrassed. I went to the playground whenever you were there. I hid among the trees just to watch you play. It was the only way to feel close to my family. Sarah felt a contradictory mix of understanding and anger. On one hand, she understood the love that motivated those actions. On the other, she felt betrayed for having been watched without her knowledge, as if her privacy had been invaded. Marcus, you had no right to make this decision alone. I am your wife. The children are your kids. We deserve to know the truth. Sarah, No, she interrupted him. You took away our right to choose. Maybe we could have found another solution together. Maybe we could have faced the danger as a family. But you decided for all of us without consulting anyone. Marcus lowered his head, recognizing the validity of the criticism. You're right. I was so desperate to protect you that I didn't think about the emotional consequences. I could only think that if anything happened to you because of me, I would never forgive myself. Ryan, who was quietly sitting on his mother's lap, stretched his little arms toward his father. Daddy, are you coming home now? The child's innocent question made all the adults stop arguing. Marcus looked at Sarah, waiting for an answer she wasn't prepared to give. I don't know, sweetheart, Sarah said to her son. Daddy and Mommy need to talk a lot before deciding anything. Marcus approached carefully. Sarah, I understand you are very angry with me. I understand it will be hard to forgive what I did, but you need to know that every day away from you was torture. I died a little each morning when I woke up alone in this place. He showed her a wall in the office where there was a large calendar. Every day of the last 2 years was marked with an X, as if he were counting the days of a prison sentence. Look at this. Each X represents a day I counted, waiting for the moment I could come home. Today marks 741 days since I was separated from my family. Sarah looked at the calendar and felt her heart tighten. 741 days. More than 2 years of self-imposed solitude, counting each day in hope of a reunion. And the people who threatened you, are they still a danger? Marcus picked up a folder on his desk and showed it to Sarah. I am very close to getting all the evidence I need. I have documents, recordings, photographs. In recent months, I've managed to infiltrate their group and document their illegal activities. He opened the folder and showed photographs of men in secret meetings, fraudulent contracts, and financial records proving money laundering. In a few more weeks, I'll have enough evidence to turn them over to the federal authorities. I've already made contact with investigators from Washington, D.C. who aren't involved in the local scheme. Sarah Mitchell leafed through the documents. It was impressive investigative work, clearly having taken months of dedication and personal risk. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? I could have helped. Because it was too dangerous. If they knew you were aware of my investigation, they would have harmed you and the children to pressure me. Daniel, who was observing the papers, asked, "Daddy, are these the bad men who wanted to hurt us?" Marcus showed a specific photograph. "Yes, son. This man here, Victor Thompson, is the group's leader. He controls several fraudulent construction projects throughout the region. This other one, Charles Anderson, is responsible for the threats and intimidation." Emma Grace looked at the photographs carefully. "Mommy, I remember this man. He was near the school one day, watching us in a strange way." Sarah felt a chill in her stomach. "When was that?" "A few months ago. I told you, but you said he was just a regular man waiting for someone." Marcus confirmed. "They watched you for months after my supposed death. They wanted to be sure I was really dead and that you knew nothing about the illicit dealings." The reality of the threat began to become clearer to Sarah. It hadn't been Marcus's paranoia. There was real and concrete danger that justified extreme measures. But if they believed you had died, why did they keep watching us? Precaution. They knew I had incriminating documents at home. They wanted to make sure you wouldn't find anything and wouldn't ask questions. Marcus showed more photographs. "This one was taken last week. They still watch you occasionally, but less frequently than at the beginning." Sarah saw a photo of herself leaving the supermarket with the children. The image had been taken from a distance, but it was clear enough to show their faces clearly. "Marcus, does this mean they're still in danger?" "Very little. Almost none, actually. In the last few months, they've relaxed the surveillance. They firmly believe I'm dead and that you know nothing. But still, I didn't want to risk it." Ryan had grown tired of the adult conversation and began exploring the office. He found a drawer full of small toys, cars, action figures, educational games. "Daddy, are these toys ours?" Marcus smiled sadly. "They're toys I bought for you during these 2 years. Whenever I saw something I thought you'd like, I bought it and kept it here, dreaming of the day I could give it to you as a gift." Emma Grace opened another drawer and found more toys, plus children's clothes in various sizes. "Mummy, look. Daddy bought clothes for us." Marcus explained. "As you were growing, I estimated the sizes and bought clothes periodically. I wanted to be prepared for when we could be together again." Sarah looked at the clothes. Marcus had guessed the sizes with impressive accuracy. He knew his children well enough to anticipate their growth, even without seeing them up close. "You really were watching us closely," she said, still processing the mix of love and invasion of privacy that this represented. "Sarah, I know it seems strange, but it was the only way to maintain some connection with you without putting you at risk." Marcus went to a shelf and picked up 3 photo albums. "I made individual albums for each child. All the photos I managed to take of them during these 2 years." He handed an album to Daniel, another to Emma Grace, and the third to Ryan, although the youngest didn't yet know what to do with the gift. Daniel opened his album and was fascinated to see dozens of photographs of himself in everyday activities, playing ball at school, playing in the backyard, riding a bike, reading a book. "Dad, were you always nearby when I didn't know?" "Not always, son, but whenever possible. I wanted to document your growth so I wouldn't miss any important moments." Emma Grace flipped through her album with admiration. "Mum, look at this picture of me on the first day of school this year. Dad was there, and I didn't even see him." Sarah looked at the photograph and remembered that day perfectly. Emma Grace had been nervous about starting at a new school, and she had taken several pictures to mark the moment. Now she discovered that Marcus had also been present, secretly documenting his daughter's first school day. The complexity of the situation hit Sarah with full force. Marcus had sacrificed 2 years of his life to protect the family, living like a ghost watching every important moment from afar. At the same time, he had taken away her right to know the truth and to participate in the decisions that affected the whole family. Marcus, I need time to process all of this. I can't just pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. I understand. I know it will be a long process. But Sarah, you need to believe I only wanted to protect you all. The children, who were playing with the new toys, began asking questions about when they could take the presents home and when Dad would come back to the family house. Sarah realized she needed to make important decisions about how to proceed. She couldn't just go back home and pretend nothing had happened, but she also couldn't leave the children confused about their father's situation. Marcus, what do you expect to happen now? What's your plan? I was hoping to finish the investigation before revealing I'm alive. I wanted to completely eliminate the threat before coming home. And how much longer will that take? Marcus showed a planner on his desk. Based on the timeline I've established, another 3 weeks. I have a meeting scheduled with the federal investigators for next month. If all goes well, I'll be able to hand over all the necessary evidence to arrest those criminals. Sarah considered the options. 3 weeks was enough time to decide how to proceed, but it also meant 3 more weeks of keeping the children confused about their father's situation. And if something goes wrong with your plan? What if they discover you're alive before you can hand over the evidence? Marcus showed her a radio transmitter on his desk. I have direct contact with the federal investigators. If anything goes wrong, they can arrange protection for you all while they arrest the criminals. You've already thought of every detail, said Sarah, acknowledging her husband's meticulous planning. Sarah, I thought of every possibility during these 2 years, every scenario, every risk, every alternative. My whole life revolved around finding the safest way to come back to you. Ryan approached his parents, carrying a toy car. Dad, can this car come home with me? Marcus looked at Sarah, waiting for guidance on how to answer. Of course it can, sweetheart, said Sarah. Dad bought it for you. But she knew that answer created an expectation in the child that there would be continuity in the relationship with his father. It was impossible to explain the complexity of that situation to a 4-year-old. Daniel, always perceptive, asked the question Sarah feared. Mum, is Dad coming home with us today? Sarah looked at Marcus and then at the 3 children waiting for an answer. Not today, sweetheart. Dad still needs to finish some very important things before he can come home for good. But when? Insisted Emma Grace. Marcus knelt down to the children's level. Kids, Dad is working on something very important to keep our family safe. Soon, very soon, I'll be able to come home and we'll be together forever. But until then, you all need to be patient and trust that Daddy is doing what's best for all of us. The children seemed to accept the explanation, but Sarah knew they would have many questions on the way back home. Marcus, how are we going to explain to the children what's happening? They'll want to tell their friends, their teachers, the whole family that you're alive. Marcus had thought about this issue. For now, this needs to be our family secret. Only the 4 of us can know. If other people find out before the right time, those bad men might find out too and hurt us. Daniel raised his hand as if he were in school. Daddy, I can keep a secret. I won't tell anyone. Emma Grace also promised. I won't tell either, Daddy. It'll be our special secret. Ryan, not fully understanding, repeated, Special secret. Sarah realized she was placing a very big responsibility on small children, but she saw no alternative at the moment. All right, for now, this stays between us. But Marcus, if in 3 weeks you haven't sorted all this out, we'll need to talk about alternatives. I agree. If, for some reason, I can't finish the investigation on time, we'll make another decision together. The sun was beginning to set, and Sarah realized they needed to get home before dark. The trail through the woods would be dangerous at night, especially with 3 small children. We have to go, it's getting late. Marcus seemed saddened by the prospect of another goodbye. Can I hug you all before you go? The children ran into their father's arms without hesitation. Marcus hugged them tightly, as if he wanted to imprint that moment in his memory for a few more weeks of solitude. Daddy, are you going to stay here alone again? Asked Emma Grace with concern. Yes, my dear. But now it will be easier because I know you all know Daddy is alive and that he loves you very much." Sarah watched the farewell between father and children with a heavy heart. It was impossible not to be moved by that reunion, even considering all the complicated circumstances. "Marcus, can we come back here before the 3 weeks are up?" "Of course, whenever you want, but please be careful not to be followed. And if you notice anything strange, anyone watching you, let me know immediately." He handed Sarah a simple cell phone. "This phone only has one number programmed. It's a secure phone I use for emergencies. If you need anything, call me." Sarah took the phone and put it in her purse. "How are we going to explain to the children why we can't tell anyone?" Marcus knelt down again to be at his children's eye level. "Kids, remember the superhero stories I used to tell you? How superheroes sometimes need to keep their identity secret to protect the people they love." The 3 children nodded. "Now Daddy is like a superhero. I need to keep my identity secret to protect you all. So, when people ask about Daddy, you keep saying that Daddy went to heaven like Mommy taught you. It's just for a little while until Daddy finishes his superhero mission." The analogy worked perfectly with the children. Daniel got excited by the idea that his father was a superhero on a secret mission. "Daddy, are you investigating the villains?" "Exactly, son. Daddy is investigating the villains to send them to jail and keep our family safe." Emma Grace asked, "And after you catch all the villains, will you be able to come home and won't have to be a superhero anymore?" "That's right, my dear. After that, Daddy comes home and stays with you forever." Ryan clapped his hands, excited by the story. "Daddy, superhero!" Sarah had to admit that Marcus had found a brilliant way to explain the situation to the children so they could understand and help keep the secret. "All right, let's go now. It's starting to get dark." Marcus walked the family to the tower door. "Sarah, you know I love you more than anything in this life, right?" She looked him in the eyes for the first time since the reunion. "Marcus, I need time to process all of this. I don't know how I feel yet. It's a lot to take in at once." "I understand. Take all the time you need." He kissed the foreheads of the 3 children and waved as they walked away down the forest trail. During the walk back, the children wouldn't stop talking about the reunion with their father. Daniel was thrilled to discover that Marcus was a superhero on a secret mission. Emma Grace was planning drawings to give as gifts to her father on their next visit. Ryan repeated "Daddy superhero" every few minutes. Sarah walked in silence, trying to organize her thoughts and conflicting emotions. On one hand, she felt immense relief that Marcus was alive and to discover that he hadn't simply abandoned the family. On the other hand, she felt anger about the lie, the unnecessary pain, and the unilateral decision that had deeply affected their lives. When they got home, the children ran to their rooms to play with the gifts Marcus had given them. Sarah sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, trying to process the day's events. She looked around the house that had become her sole responsibility for 2 years. The kitchen table, where she had cried so many nights, worried about finances. The living room where she had hugged the children when they asked about their father. The bedroom where she had spent sleepless nights alone and scared of the future. All of that could have been avoided if Marcus had trusted her enough to share the truth and find a solution together. At the same time, she recognized the desperate love that had motivated her husband's actions. Marcus had sacrificed his own life to protect the family, living in total isolation for 2 years. Daniel came down the stairs and approached her. "Mommy, are you okay?" "Yes, sweetie. I'm just thinking about what happened today." "Are you happy that Daddy is alive?" Her son's direct question caught her off guard. "Of course I'm happy Daddy is alive. Mommy always wanted Daddy to come home." "But you seem sad." Sarah hugged her son. "Sometimes we feel sad and happy at the same time. It's complicated to understand, but it's normal." "Why are you sad if Daddy is alive?" "Because Mommy spent a long time thinking Daddy was gone forever. Now I need to get used to the idea that he was always alive." Daniel seemed to understand. "Like when we lose a toy and feel sad, and then we find the toy and feel happy, but we still remember the sadness from when it was lost." The child's analogy was surprisingly accurate. "Exactly like that, sweetie." Emma Grace and Ryan came down too, wanting to show their mother how they were organizing the new toys Marcus had given them. "Mommy, when are we going to visit Daddy again?" asked Emma Grace. "I don't know yet. Maybe this weekend. Can we bring something for him? He must be lonely in that tower." Emma Grace's suggestion touched Sarah's heart. Even at just 6 years old, the girl had noticed her father's loneliness and wanted to help. "That's a good idea. What do you think Daddy would like to receive?" Daniel suggested. "We could make him some cookies." Ryan clapped. "Cookies. Daddy likes cookies." Emma Grace had another idea. "And we can bring some new photos for him to put up in the tower." Sarah noticed that the children, in their innocence, were already adapting to the situation and trying to find ways to stay connected to their father. It was a simpler and more positive perspective than the conflicting feelings she herself was experiencing. That night, after putting the children to bed, Sarah sat in the bedroom and picked up the phone Marcus had given her. She looked at the device for a few minutes before deciding whether or not to call. Finally, she dialed the only number programmed. "Hello?" Marcus's voice sounded anxious on the other end. "Hi, it's me." "Sarah, did you all get home safely?" "Yes, we did. The children are asleep." "How are they handling all of this?" "Better than I imagined. They love the superhero story." Daniel is excited. Emma Grace wants to help, and Ryan doesn't fully understand yet, but he's happy. "And you? How are you handling it?" Sarah took a moment to answer. "I'm confused. Very confused. Sarah, I know I hurt you. I know it was selfish of me to make that decision alone. If I could go back, I would do it differently." "How would you do it differently?" "I would trust you. I would tell you the truth from the start, and we would find a solution together, like we always used to." Sarah felt tears beginning to form. "Marcus, do you have any idea how hard it was to live thinking you had died? Do you know how many times I wished I were dead too, just to be close to you?" "Sarah, don't say that. It's the truth. There were times when the only thing keeping me alive were the children, the responsibility of raising them alone. If it weren't for them, I would have given up on everything." Marcus was silent for a few moments before replying with a choked voice. "Sarah, forgive me. Please forgive me. I know I have no right to ask, but I need you to know that every day away from you all was torture. Every decision I made was about protecting you. I know. I saw the evidence today. I know you suffered too. But my suffering was a choice. Yours was a consequence of my decisions. That's very different." Sarah was struck by the maturity of the observation. "Marcus, I need time. I don't know yet if I'll be able to forgive completely. I don't know if we can ever be a normal family again." "I understand. I'm not expecting everything to go back to normal immediately. I just want the chance to try to earn back your trust. The children want to visit you this weekend. Would you let me?" "Yes. They deserve time with their father. They suffered as much as I did from your absence." "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." Did you meet someone else during these 2 years?" The question caught her off guard. "Marcus, how can you ask that?" "I'm sorry. I know I have no right, but I watched you from afar and saw that some men tried to approach. For your information, no. I didn't meet anyone. I was too busy trying to survive and take care of 3 children alone to think about relationships." "Thank you for telling me. Marcus, you lost the right to be jealous when you pretended to be dead." "You're right. I'm sorry." They were silent for a few seconds. "Sarah?" "Yes?" "Do you still love me?" The question left her speechless. It was too complex for a simple answer. "Marcus, I love the man I married. I love the father of my children. I love the memories we had together, but I don't yet know what I feel for the man who lied to me for 2 years. That's an honest answer. It's the only answer I can give right now." "Sarah, can I make you a promise?" "What promise?" "I promise I will earn your love again. I promise I will spend the rest of my life making up for the pain I caused. And I promise I will never make important decisions alone again." Sarah felt the tears flow freely. "Marcus, I want to believe that. But trust is something that builds over time. I know. I'm willing to invest however much time is necessary. I'm going to hang up now. I need to sleep and process all of this." "Okay, Sarah?" "Yes?" Thank you for giving me a chance." Sarah hung up the phone and cried for over an hour before she could fall asleep. They were tears of relief, of anger, of pain, and of hope, all mixed into an emotional confusion she had never experienced before. In the following days, the children constantly asked about when they would visit Daddy again. Sarah decided it would be the following Saturday, giving herself a few more days to process the situation. During the week, she researched similar cases, trying to better understand the legal and psychological implications of what Marcus had done. She discovered that faking one's own death was a crime, but that special circumstances could be considered in the judgment. She also looked for information about the money laundering scheme Marcus had mentioned. A quick search in the local newspapers revealed that there were indeed ongoing investigations into suspicious activities in the region's construction sector. On Thursday night, she called Marcus again. "How has your week been?" she asked. "Lonely, as always, but better, because I know you all know I'm alive." "Marcus, I researched the case you mentioned. It's true there are investigations into money laundering in construction." "Yes. The scheme is bigger than I initially imagined. It involves several companies and some public officials. Are you really close to getting everything resolved?" "Very close. I have a meeting scheduled with the federal investigators next Monday. If all goes well, I can hand over all the documentation and conclude my part in the investigation." Sarah felt a mix of hope and anxiety. And after that, officially Marcus Mitchell will be resurrected from the dead. I'll have to face the legal consequences of having faked my own death, but the investigators have assured me that cooperating with the investigation will be considered a mitigating factor. What legal consequences? Possibly some fines and community service. Nothing that would prevent me from coming home and rebuilding our family. The children want to visit you on Saturday. That would be wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. Marcus, when all this is over, when you officially come back to life, how are we going to explain it to people? To the neighbors, to the children's school, to our family? The official version will be that there was an identification error at the hospital, that I was in a coma for a long time, and then had amnesia. It's a story the investigators helped me build to protect the investigation. And people will believe that? We don't know. But it's better than the full truth, which could put us all at risk. Sarah realized that even after Marcus officially returned, they would have to live with another lie, albeit a smaller and less painful one. Okay, let's see how everything develops. On Saturday morning, Sarah packed a bag with homemade cookies, some recent photographs of the children, and a small radio that Marcus could use to listen to music during the lonely nights in the tower. The children were excited at the prospect of seeing their father again. Daniel had drawn a picture of the family reunited. Emma Grace had written a little letter, and Ryan had chosen one of his favorite toys to give as a gift to Daddy. The trail through the woods was more familiar now. Sarah managed to find the tower without difficulty, and the children ran ahead when they spotted the wooden structure. Marcus was waiting at the door, as if he had been watching the trail all morning. The children threw themselves into his arms, and Sarah watched the reunion with less conflicted feelings than the first time. "Did you bring presents for me?" Marcus asked, seeing the bag Sarah was carrying. "We made cookies," said Daniel proudly. "And I made a card," added Emma Grace. Ryan showed the toy he had brought. "So Daddy won't be alone." Marcus seemed genuinely moved by the gifts. "You are the best kids in the world." They went up to the 6th floor, which was Marcus's office. Sarah noticed he had arranged the space to be more welcoming, with extra chairs and a small table for the children to play at. "Marcus, did you set all this up for our visit?" "Yes, I wanted it to be more comfortable for you." The children spread out across the floor, playing and exploring, while Sarah and Marcus talked. "How was your week?" he asked. "Difficult, a lot of emotions to process." "And the kids? How did they react during the week?" "Surprisingly well. They seem to have accepted the situation better than I have." "Children are resilient," Sarah agreed. "Marcus, I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to understand, to forgive, and to find a way for us to move forward. That means a lot to me. But it's still going to take time. As much time as you need." Emma Grace approached her parents. "Daddy, after your superhero mission is over, Are you coming home forever? Marcus looked at Sarah before answering. If Mommy allows it, yes. Emma Grace ran to Sarah. Mommy, are you going to let Daddy come home? Sarah looked at her daughter, then at Marcus, then at Daniel and Ryan, who had stopped playing to hear the answer. Sweetie, Daddy and I still need to talk about that. But do you want him to come back? The child's direct question forced Sarah to be honest with herself. Yes, I do. But life is more complicated than you think. Daniel approached too. Mommy, if Daddy says he's sorry, will you forgive him? Sarah smiled at her son. Daddy has already said he's sorry, my love. So do you forgive him? I'm trying to forgive. Forgiving sometimes takes a little while. Ryan, not fully understanding the conversation but sensing it was important, came over and hugged Sarah's legs. Mommy be happy. Daddy come home. The simplicity of Ryan's observation made Sarah cry. The children just wanted the family to be together again. Marcus approached carefully. Sarah, may I hug you? She hesitated for a few seconds before agreeing. It was the first hug in over 2 years. Marcus held her carefully, as if she might break in his arms. Sarah allowed herself to feel the familiarity of the hug, the scent she knew so well, the feeling of safety she had always felt in her husband's arms. The children were thrilled to see their parents hugging and ran to join in on a group hug. For a few minutes, they were a normal family again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When they separated, Sarah realized something had changed inside her. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was the beginning of a healing process. Marcus, on Monday, are you going to submit all the documentation? Yes, it's all ready. I'm sure it will work out. And if it does, how long until you can officially return? The investigators said a few weeks. They need to process all the information and make the necessary arrests before revealing my identity, Sarah calculated mentally. So maybe in a month you could come home? It's possible if you want me to come back. Sarah looked around the makeshift office, then at the children playing happily with their father, and made a decision. Marcus, I want to try to rebuild our family. He looked at her with cautious hope. Even after everything that happened? It won't be easy. We'll need family therapy, we'll need to talk a lot, and you'll have to prove you've changed. But yes, I want to try. Marcus began to cry. Sarah, I promise I'll make everything right this time. Don't promise me. Show me. I will show you every day for the rest of my life. The children noticed something important had happened between their parents and approached curiously. Mommy? Is Daddy coming back home? Asked Daniel. Sarah looked at Marcus and then at the children. When Daddy's superhero mission is over, he'll come back home. But it won't be right away. We'll need time to get used to being a family again. Emma Grace clapped her hands. Yay, Daddy's coming back! Ryan repeated. Daddy come back! Daddy come back! Daniel asked a practical question. Will Daddy sleep in the bedroom with you, Mommy? Sarah and Marcus looked at each other, realizing there were many practical details to work out. We'll see about that when the time comes, Sarah said diplomatically. They spent the rest of the morning together in the tower. Marcus showed the children how he had built each floor, taught Ryan how to use some safe carpentry tools, and helped Emma Grace and Daniel build a little wooden house for their dolls. Sarah watched the interactions between father and children, noticing how Marcus was naturally affectionate and patient with them. Those traits hadn't changed during the 2 years of separation. When it was time to leave, the goodbye was less painful. The children knew they would see their father again soon, and Sarah had made the decision to try to rebuild the family. Will you call me Monday to tell me how the meeting went? She asked. Of course, as soon as I'm out of the meeting. Marcus, be careful. Now that I've decided to give you a second chance, I don't want anything to happen to you. He kissed her forehead gently. I'll be very careful. I have too many reasons to come home safely. During the following week, Sarah felt lighter. The children were visibly happier, knowing their father was alive and that there would be a family reunion in the near future. On Monday afternoon, Marcus called as he had promised. How did the meeting go? Sarah asked anxiously. Better than I expected. The investigators were impressed with the amount of evidence I managed to gather. They said it's enough material to arrest the entire organization. And when will the arrests happen? Next week. Coordinated operation to arrest everyone simultaneously so no one escapes or has time to destroy evidence. Does that mean you're safe now? Almost. After the arrests happen, I'll be completely safe. The investigators will announce they found a survivor of the accident who was amnesiac and hospitalized in a rehabilitation clinic. Sarah felt immense relief. Marcus, does that mean our life can get back to normal soon? Our new normal, yes. We'll have to rebuild a lot, but yes. The children will be so happy. Sarah, can I ask for something? You can. When I officially return, would it be possible for us to stay in a different house, at least at first? The current house has too many memories from the time you all thought I was dead. Sarah thought about the suggestion. It made sense to start in a new house without the painful memories associated with grief. That's a good idea. We can look for a house to rent. Actually, I sold some architectural designs during this time. I have enough money for a down payment on a new house if you want. Sarah was surprised. Were you working during these 2 years? Yes. I developed some projects and sold them under a fictitious name. I couldn't stay completely inactive, and I wanted to have money for when I came back to you. Marcus, it seems you thought of everything. I had 2 years to plan every detail of my return. The following week, the arrests happened exactly as planned. Sarah saw in the local newspaper that the entire criminal organization had been dismantled in a federal operation. Marcus's name wasn't mentioned, but she knew he had been crucial to the investigation's success. 2 days later, Marcus called with the news she had been waiting for. Sarah, it's official. Marcus Mitchell officially survived the accident and is recovering from amnesia. How do you feel? Nervous, excited, scared, hopeful, all at the same time. When are you coming home? I can come today if you want. Sarah realized this was the moment she had dreamed of for 2 years, but it now made her nervous. Marcus, the children don't know today is the day they're at school. Can we pick them up together? You want to show up at the school? People will ask 1,000 questions. The investigators prepared me for this. I have a convincing story about amnesia and gradually recovering my memory. Sarah took a deep breath. Okay, let's pick up the children together. 2 hours later, Marcus appeared at the front door. He was wearing normal clothes, had gotten a haircut and shaved. He looked like the Marcus from 2 years ago, but with a few more wrinkles and a more mature gaze. Hi, he said simply. Hi, she replied, feeling a mix of familiarity and strangeness. May I come in? Sarah opened the door, and he entered the house that had been his during their marriage. He looked around with nostalgia and melancholy. It's just as I remembered. I didn't change almost anything. There wasn't money for renovations. Marcus noticed some new furniture. The television is new. The old one broke last year. I bought this one used. They stood still in the living room, not quite knowing how to proceed. Would you like some coffee? Sarah offered. I'd love that. In the kitchen, as Sarah prepared the coffee, Marcus observed every detail. You changed the arrangement of the plates in the cabinet. I had to reorganize everything to be able to reach things by myself. Sarah, about the financial situation. I know you struggled. I have money saved to cover all the expenses you had on your own. Marcus, I don't want you to feel obligated to... It's not an obligation, it's a responsibility. I should have been here helping, but I wasn't. The least I can do is cover the expenses that were a consequence of my absence. Sarah served the coffee, and they sat at the kitchen table where they had shared so many breakfasts together in the past. How are we going to do this, Marcus? How are we going to be husband and wife again after everything that happened? Slowly, one day at a time, no pressure. You can sleep in the guest room until we see how things develop. Of course, I didn't expect to share the bedroom with you immediately, and we have to talk to the children about not telling anyone the real version of the story. I've already thought about that. We can say they knew Daddy was alive because they had special dreams about him. Children sometimes confuse reality with dreams. Sarah smiled for the first time since he had arrived. You really did think of everything. I had a lot of time to think. They finished their coffee in a comfortable silence, just like they used to. "Shall we go pick up the children?" Marcus asked. "Let's go." The drive to the school was quiet. Sarah drove with Marcus in the passenger seat. She noticed several people looked at them curiously as they passed through the town centre. "People are going to talk a lot about your return. Let them talk. Soon another rumour will come up and everyone will forget." When they arrived at the school, Sarah parked in the usual spot. "The kids are going to freak out when they see you here. I hope it's from joy." They walked together to the school gate. Some mothers who were waiting recognized Marcus and were visibly shocked. "My God, it's Marcus Mitchell," one of them whispered to another. "I thought he had died," the other replied. Marcus waved cordially to them, as if nothing extraordinary was happening. When the dismissal bell rang, the children began to exit the building. Daniel was the first to spot his parents together at the gate. He stopped abruptly, processing the sight, before shouting, "Daddy!" He dropped his backpack and ran toward his parents. Emma Grace, who was right behind, also shouted with joy and joined the run. Ryan, who studied in a different classroom because of his age, appeared a few minutes later and had the same reaction. The other children and mothers watched the family reunion scene with curiosity and emotion. Several people took photos with their cell phones. Marcus knelt down and hugged all three children simultaneously, crying with happiness. Sarah watched the scene with teary eyes, realizing this was the moment she had dreamed of during 2 years of mourning. Daniel's teacher approached, confused. "Mrs. Mitchell, I don't understand." "Didn't Mr. Mitchell have—" Sarah replied with the rehearsed version. "There was a mistake at the hospital. Marcus was in a coma for a long time and then had amnesia. He only just fully recovered." "But the funeral, the burial, identification error. The body was someone else's." The teacher seemed to accept the explanation, though clearly confused. Back in the car, the children wouldn't stop talking to their father, telling him about school, friends, activities. Marcus listened to them with total attention, as if trying to absorb 2 years of lost stories. "Daddy, are you staying home now?" Emma Grace asked. "Yes, my daughter. Daddy isn't leaving home anymore." "And do you remember everything now?" Daniel wanted to know. "Almost everything. Some things are still coming back slowly." Ryan, in the back seat, kept repeating, "Daddy's back," clearly happy. When they got home, Marcus carried the children in his arms to the door, like he used to in the past. Sarah watched the scene and felt a pang of nostalgia for the times when they were a normal family. Inside the house, the children showed Marcus everything that had changed during his absence. New drawings on the refrigerator, new toys, school books, the room arrangement Sarah had modified. "Daddy, Mommy had to fix the shower all by herself when it broke," Daniel told him. "And she learned to change light bulbs," Emma Grace added. "Mommy got really strong while you were sick," Ryan concluded. Marcus looked at Sarah with admiration and gratitude. "Mommy was always strong. Now she's a real superhero." The children enthusiastically agreed. That night, after dinner and putting the children to bed, which took much longer than usual because they wanted their father to be part of the whole routine, Sarah and Marcus sat in the living room to talk. "How does it feel to be officially alive again?" she asked. "Strange. Good but strange, like I'm coming back to life after a very long dream. And how does it feel to be a father again?" "Wonderful. The kids have grown so much. Daniel is almost a teenager, Emma Grace is so mature, and Ryan was barely a baby when everything happened." Sarah noticed Marcus had difficulty referring directly to the farce he had created. "Marcus, you're going to have to learn to talk about what happened. We can't pretend it was just a medical error. You're right, it's hard to accept what I did. Mainly because you'll have to lie about this for the rest of your life when people ask." Marcus agreed sadly. "It's the price I have to pay for my choices." They stayed silent for a few minutes. "Sarah, can I ask something I've been curious about since I came back?" "Go ahead. How did you manage to keep the house, the kids, your job, everything by yourself? Where did you find the strength for that?" Sarah thought before answering. "In the beginning, I couldn't. The first few weeks were terrible. I could barely get out of bed, let alone take care of 3 small children." "What changed?" "One day, Daniel asked me if Mummy was going to heaven like Daddy. I realized the children were afraid of losing me too. At that moment, I understood I didn't have the right to fall apart. They had already lost their father. They couldn't lose their mother too. Marcus listened attentively. From that day on, I got up every day thinking about the children, every difficulty I faced, every bill I couldn't pay, every night I cried. I thought it was to give them stability. Sarah, you are an incredible woman. Marcus, I'm not. I'm a woman who did what she had to do to protect her children. Any mother would do the same. Not every mother would have had the strength you had. Sarah got up from the armchair. Let me show you the guest room. I got everything ready for you. The guest room was impeccable. Sarah had changed the sheets, put out clean towels, and even some toiletries that Marcus used to use. You remembered my shampoo, he said, seeing the products in the adjacent bathroom. I bought it today when I found out you were coming back. Marcus was moved by her care. Sarah, thank you for giving me this chance. Marcus, don't thank me yet. Let's see how living together again will be before any thanks. You're right. They said goodnight formally, like two polite strangers, before separating to their respective rooms. Sarah lay in the bed where she had slept alone for 2 years and realized she wouldn't be able to fall asleep easily. Marcus was back, he was alive, he was just a few feet away from her. It was everything she had wished for during months, but now that it was reality, she felt anxiety instead of relief. In the next room, Marcus was also awake, looking at the ceiling and processing the first day of his new life. He was home, with his family, but he recognized it would be a long process before everything went back to how it was before, if it ever would. The following days were of gradual adaptation. The children were overjoyed to have their father back and wanted to spend every minute with him. Marcus, in turn, was completely dedicated to the children, as if he wanted to make up for 2 years of absence in a few weeks. Sarah watched the interactions between father and children with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy seeing the children so joyful. On the other, she felt jealous of the exclusive attention they gave their father and the natural affection they showed him, while she had been the one who cared for them alone through the entire difficult period. A week after Marcus's return, Sarah decided to address this issue. Marcus, we need to talk. Of course. What is it? The children are very attached to you, which is understandable, but they're treating me like I'm the housekeeper. Marcus seemed surprised. How so? Yesterday, Daniel asked me to make his snack, but asked you to help him with his homework. Emma Grace asked me to wash her clothes, but asked you to read a story. It's like I'm responsible for the chores, and you're responsible for the fun times. Marcus understood the issue immediately. Sarah, you're right. I didn't realize that was happening. I understand they missed you and want to enjoy your company, but it's not fair to me. What do you think we should do? Split the responsibilities. You also have to scold them, enforce rules, handle the boring obligations of fatherhood. I completely agree. Marcus called the 3 children for a talk in the living room. Kids, Dad and Mom need to talk to you about something important. The children sat on the sofa, attentive. You know Dad was away from home for a long time, right? They confirmed. All this time, who took care of you? Mom, Daniel answered. And Mom did an amazing job taking care of you all by herself. Now that Dad is back, you're asking everything from Dad and forgetting that Mom is here too. Emma Grace seemed to understand. Dad, it's because we missed you so much. I know, sweetheart, and Dad missed you all so much too. But now we are a family again, and that means Dad and Mom will take care of you together. Marcus continued. Starting today, sometimes Dad will help with homework, and Mom will read stories. Sometimes Mom will play and Dad will make the snack, okay? Ryan, always practical, asked, And who's giving me a bath today? Sarah and Marcus looked at each other and laughed. Today is Dad's day to give the bath, Sarah decided. This conversation marked the beginning of a more balanced dynamic in the house. Marcus took on his share of the household responsibilities and child-rearing, while Sarah returned to participating in the fun moments of the family routine. 2 weeks after Marcus's return, Sarah felt it was time to address deeper issues in their relationship. Marcus, how do you feel about us? About our marriage? Hopeful, but cautious. I know I have a lot of work ahead to regain your trust. And me? How do you see me now? Marcus thought carefully before answering. I see a woman who is stronger, more independent, more self-assured than she was before. I really admire how you managed to keep the family together. Does that change anything between us? Yes, it does, but for the better. I've always loved you, Sarah. Now I also deeply admire you. Sarah felt touched by the sincerity of his answer. Marcus, I feel like I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. How so? I had to learn to make decisions alone, to solve problems, to be strong for the kids. I don't know if I can go back to being the dependent wife I was before. Sarah, I don't want you to go back to being dependent. I want us to be true partners. Partners? Yes. That we make important decisions together, that we share responsibilities, that we support each other. I don't want a relationship anymore where I decide everything alone. Sarah was surprised by the maturity of his answer. Marcus, that sounds like the relationship I always wanted to have with you. It was one of the things I learned during these 2 years away from home. I realized my tendency to make decisions alone wasn't protection, it was selfishness. Are you saying the whole situation made you grow as a person? I'm saying the suffering taught me things I wouldn't have learned any other way. Sarah realized Marcus had indeed changed during the period of isolation. He was more thoughtful, more humble, more aware of his flaws. Marcus, can I ask you something I've always wanted to know? Of course. During these 2 years, did you regret the decision to fake your death? Marcus took a long time to answer. Every day, especially when I saw you from afar and realized how much you were suffering, but at the same time when I saw that you were safe, I thought it had been worth it. And now, knowing how it all ended, now I know I made the wrong decision. I should have trusted you from the start. We could have found a solution together that wouldn't have caused so much suffering. Sarah felt validated by his admission. Marcus, this is one of the most important things for me, that you acknowledge you were wrong. Sarah, I was gravely wrong. I hurt you and the children unnecessarily. If I could go back, I would do everything differently. How would you do it differently specifically? I would tell you about the threats the moment they happened. We would seek professional help together. We would find a way to protect the family without causing emotional trauma. Sarah realized that Marcus had truly reflected deeply on his choices and their consequences. Marcus, I'm starting to believe you've changed. I have changed. I want to be the husband and father you all deserve to have. That night, after putting the children to bed, Sarah made a decision she had been considering for days. Marcus, would you like to watch a movie with me in the living room? I'd love to. They sat on the sofa, not too close but not far apart either, and watched a romantic movie they used to enjoy in the past. During the movie, Sarah discreetly rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. It was the first voluntary physical contact between them since his return. Marcus remained completely still, afraid of breaking the moment. When the movie ended, Sarah didn't pull away immediately. Sarah? He whispered. Yes? Can I ask what this means? It means I'm starting to feel close to you again. Marcus smiled for the first time in weeks. That makes me very happy. Marcus, I want you to know that I'm still not ready for us to be fully husband and wife again. I understand there's no rush. But I am willing to try to rebuild our intimacy gradually. Sarah, that's more than I hoped for. They stayed silent for a few minutes, just appreciating the physical closeness they had lost for so long. Marcus? Yes? Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. During the first few months after the accident, I used to hug your pillow at night and pretend you were there. Marcus was moved by the confession. Sarah, it hurts me to know you went through that. I'm telling you because I want you to understand how much your absence affected me. It wasn't just sadness. It was a physical emptiness, a loneliness I felt in my body. I felt that too in the tower, a terrible physical loneliness. Sarah pulled back a little to look him in the eyes. Marcus, I want to try to be your wife again. I don't know if I'll manage, but I want to try. Sarah, I love you so much. I love you too. I never stopped loving you even when I was angriest." They kissed. It was a cautious kiss, full of emotion and meaning, a kiss that marked the beginning of a fresh start. When they parted, both were crying. "Let's take it slow, okay?" Sarah said. "At your pace. Always at your pace." A month after Marcus's official return, they began looking for a new house for the family. As Marcus had suggested, they wanted a complete fresh start, away from the painful memories associated with the house where Sarah had spent the period of mourning. They found a perfect house on a quiet street, with a big backyard for the children to play, and enough space for Marcus to set up a small architecture office. The children were excited about the move. For them, the new house represented a new phase for the family, where their father would be present and involved. During the moving process, Sarah and Marcus worked side by side, making decisions together about decoration, organization, and necessary modifications. It was the partnership dynamic Marcus had promised and Sarah had always wanted. "Marcus, I like how we're making these decisions together," she commented as they organized the master bedroom. "This is how it always should have been. Why wasn't it like this before?" Marcus stopped organizing the clothes in the closet to answer honestly. "Because I thought being a man meant making all the important decisions alone. I thought I was protecting you by not bothering you with problems. And now you understand you were excluding me. Now I understand I was being sexist and paternalistic. You are my wife, not my daughter. You deserve to be part of all the decisions that affect our family." Sarah was impressed by Marcus's honesty and self-criticism. "This is one of the changes I like most in you." "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Do you think we can be happier now than we were before all this happened?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "You know, Marcus, I think so. We went through so much suffering and growth that we now value things we once took for granted." "Like what?" "Like being together, like having family breakfast, like discussing the children's homework. Simple things that were once routine and are now precious." Marcus agreed. "For me, every morning I wake up in the same house as you, all is a gift. And for me, being able to share responsibilities with you is a huge relief." They continued organizing the room in comfortable silence, each absorbed in reflections about the journey they had traveled. "Sarah," Marcus broke the silence. "Yes? Thank you for giving me a second chance. Marcus, thank you for coming back." That night, in the new house, Sarah made the decision to invite Marcus to sleep in the master bedroom with her. "Marcus, would you like to come back to our room?" He stopped brushing his teeth and looked at her through the bathroom mirror. "Are you sure?" "I am. I want to try being husband and wife completely again." Marcus turned to face her. "Sarah, if at any moment you feel uncomfortable, I'll go back to the guest room. No questions, no problems." "Okay." They lay down in the new bed, in the new room, in the new house. It was symbolic, a complete fresh start for a family that had been through the greatest ordeal possible. Marcus lay on his back, respecting Sarah's personal space. She, in turn, gradually moved closer and rested her head on his chest, as she did before the whole nightmare began. "I missed this," she whispered. "Me too. Every night for 2 years. They fell asleep holding each other like a normal couple for the first time in over 2 years. 6 months after Marcus's return, the Mitchell family had found a new normal. The children were adapted to the new house and the routine with their father present. Sarah and Marcus had completely rekindled their relationship and were more connected than ever. Marcus opened a small architecture office and was working on honest, legal residential projects. Sarah continued teaching, but now with her husband's support at home to share domestic responsibilities. The emotional scars still existed, but they were gradually healing. Sarah still had moments of insecurity, fearing Marcus might disappear again. Marcus carried the guilt for the decisions he had made, but was learning to deal with it through individual therapy. One evening, while having a family dinner, Daniel asked a question that caught his parents off guard. "Dad, do you still remember when you were a superhero?" Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances, realizing the children still held the fantastical version of events. "Yes, I remember, son. It was a very difficult time." Did you like being a superhero? Marcus thought carefully about his answer. No, Daniel. Being a superhero meant being away from the family, and that was very sad. I much prefer just being a father and husband. Emma Grace asked another question. Dad, if other villains appear, will you turn into a superhero again? No, my daughter. Now, if any problem appears, Daddy and Mommy will solve it together. No secrets. Sarah smiled at Marcus, approving the answer. Ryan, always practical, wanted to know, Daddy, do you prefer to be a normal dad or a superhero? I prefer to be a normal dad, Ryan. It's much more fun. After dinner, while the children played in the living room, Sarah and Marcus talked in the kitchen. How do you feel about the future? She asked. Optimistic. For the first time in years, optimistic. And about us? I think we're stronger now than we were before. We passed the hardest test a couple can face. Sarah agreed. Marcus, can I tell you something? Of course. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and check if you're really beside me. Marcus hugged her. Sarah, I will be by your side every night for the rest of my life. I promise. Don't promise me. Show me. Every day. I will show you. Every day. 2 years after Marcus's return, the Mitchell family was completely rebuilt. The children had grown and developed within a solid family structure. Daniel, now 11, was a responsible boy who helped his parents with his younger siblings. Emma Grace at 9 had become an expressive and affectionate child. Ryan at 7 was joyful and secure, with no traumatic memories of the events. Sarah and Marcus had renewed their marriage vows in a simple ceremony, surrounded only by close family. It was a symbolic way to formalize the fresh start and to celebrate overcoming all adversities. Marcus, do you regret anything about how we handled all of this? Sarah asked during a walk in the park where they used to take the children. I regret making that initial decision alone, but I don't regret fighting to come home and rebuild our family. And if we could go back in time, would you do everything differently? Marcus thought for a few moments. Sarah, if we could go back in time, I would tell you about the threats from day one. But you know what? We went through so much personal growth during this experience that I sometimes wonder if we were mature enough before to have the relationship we have today. Sarah considered the observation. That's true. We are different people now, more mature, more united, more grateful to have a family. Exactly. The suffering wasn't in vain if it made us better people. They watched the children playing on the playground, happy and secure, unaware of the difficult journey the family had taken to get there. Marcus, you know what makes me proudest? What? How we protected the children throughout this whole process. They went through the trauma of your absence, but they didn't carry the weight of the lies and the sordid details. That was the most important thing, ensuring they grew up with emotional security. Sarah moved closer to Marcus and kissed him, a kiss full of love earned through much suffering and much dedication. I love you, Marcus Mitchell. I love you too, Sarah Mitchell. And this time, it's really forever. Really forever. The children ran toward their parents, wanting to show an interesting bug they had found in the garden. Marcus knelt to observe the discovery with them, while Sarah watched with a smile of complete contentment. The Mitchell family had survived the greatest possible storm. Now they could enjoy the calm that comes after the tempest, knowing they were capable of overcoming any challenge as long as they faced it together. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this emotional story. Did Sarah make the right decision by giving Marcus a second chance? Do you believe love can overcome such big lies when the intention was to protect the family? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and tell us where you're following from. Thank you so much for your company on this journey. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that touch the heart.